Okay, so I thought about bringing those edges in a little bit. I guess I did a little bit. I'm not going to do it any more than that, though. So I'm going to switch to face mode. I'm going to select all these faces. And going to shift, right click, extrude face, switch to my regular move tool. I'm going to move them down, and then with all of them selected, I'm going to switch to my scale tool, and without pressing anything, I'm going to grab that green handle, the Y handle. I'm going to flatten them out. Now they're all perfectly flat, and now I can extrude a bunch of times. Each time I extrude, I'm extruding just far enough to keep these faces squarish. So I don't want to do that because that's rectangular. So I'll do this and try to keep them squarish, and that will save me a lot of work later on. So extrude, switch my move tool, same thing. Okay, I can actually press G on my keyboard and it will redo the last action that I did. Switch my move tool, press G, switch my move tool. Okay, and now this time I want to scale all these down. If I go to my scaling tool, I can tell it to let's see, I haven't used this in a while, but object, child transform. Oh well. If you want to look it up, there's a way to scale each of these individually in their own space. If you can understand that, comment. So if I were to, it would be like doing this to each one of them individually. Yeah, so I could back up and do that. And then adjust the offset. Hypersensitive. Okay, so that's a smart move. Okay. Now, if I press 3 on my keyboard, I can see what it looks like smooth. Press F8 on my keyboard to make it easy to deselect. And there's the beginnings of my squid. Okay, so now let's work on the head portion of it. We go to face mode, switch back to 1. Typically, when you're working on your model, you want to work on it without it being smooth. Especially if you're working on a video game. Video games don't smooth meshes. So I'm just going off of memory here, but I believe the squid's body is a little bit more flat and wide. Okay, and I'm going to shift, right click, extrude, switch to my move tool, move it straight up. Need to make sure the keep faces together is on, because I have 4 faces that are next to each other. Wouldn't want them to be separate. Okay, I'm going to sculpt this as I go. Shift right click, extrude. I'm going to shift it a little bit. Now I can press down, hold down shift and press period on my keyboard to grow my selection. That can be handy. I can also hold down shift and press comma to shrink the selection. It's also handy. So I shift right click, extrude, Move up yet again. This time I'm going to start scaling it in a little bit. Move it back, touch, extrude. Scale it in. Scale it in. Okay. Now I'm going to grab, just in edge mode, I'm going to grab these two top edges and slide them up, kind of round that out a little bit. Okay. This is not a very realistic squid, but hopefully it will be appealing by the time we're done. Okay. So right click, I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to go ahead and delete history. Your history, when people talk about history, this is what they're talking about right here in the channel box. All these inputs are history to this object. If you press Control A on your keyboard, you open up your attribute editor, all these different tabs are history. Now, right now, Maya still thinks that my squid is a cube. And every time I navigate, even just doing this, the computer says, okay, the cube changed its view. Oh, it's not a cube anymore. It has an extrude. And the extruded vertices are now in this location. Oh, there's another extrude. And it goes through and it rebuilds the object through its history every time it's manipulated. Now, if you don't clear your history, that's a lot of computation for your computer to do. So you should only keep this history if you feel like you need to undo part of your object. If you like how it is, which I do right now, then you need to go to Edit, Delete by Type, History. Okay, and I've also got it centered where I want it right now in my scene. Even though I had to move it up some. So, and I can freeze these transformations. I can turn this back to 0 without moving it down. And to do that, just go to Modify, Freeze Transformations. Now you can see that translate Y, it says 0. That can be really handy. Okay. So now, press 3 on my keyboard, take a look at it. And squids have like 2 tentacles that are really long, right? So, oh, and they're kind of arrow shaped on top as well. So, we need to add in let's do those arrow shapes first. If I go to face mode, select these faces, turn off the smoothing, shift right click, extrude, switch to my scaling tool, move that out, move it, push that, move it down a little bit, okay, select those faces and move this up a little bit. Okay, now if I press 3, my keyboard, I can see what it's going to look like at render time, unless I'm working on a video game. Again, if I'm working on a video game, this is what it looks like. So that's not necessarily what we want. Okay, so I need to grab 2 of these tentacles and make them a lot longer than the others. So I'm going to do that. I'll select face. I'll select just this top face, or the very bottom face, end face of each tentacle. Press Shift period to grow that selection.